Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is compare. Let's take a look at some of the definitions for this verb. The first way we use the verb compare is to mean to measure or note the similarity or dissimilarity between things or people. So in case the word similarity is new for you, that essentially means the same. Things that are either exactly the same or about the same. Dissimilar, of course, is going to be the opposite, so things that are different. A second way we use this verb compare is to mean to consider or describe as similar. So again, kind of related to that first meaning we discussed as well. A third way this verb compare is used is to mean to be of an equal or similar nature or quality. Compare is a regular verb. To make the progressive tense, we're going to drop the E and then add ing to make comparing. To make the past tense and participle forms of this verb, we're just going to add a D because this verb ends in E. The base verb, compare, ends in an sound or R sound. So the past tense form of this verb is going to make a D sound. Compared, compared. Let's take a look at some phrasal verbs next. The one you're most likely to hear is the phrasal verb compare to. And its meaning is to measure or judge one thing against something else. Here it is in an example sentence. He's a slob compared to his roommate. So in this sentence, we're measuring how neat or orderly, maybe how clean one person is versus the roommate. Another related phrasal verb is to compare something to something else. And this really goes back to our original or first definition. We're noting the similarity between things or people. Here's an example sentence. How does her new job compare to her old one? The last phrasal verb we'll look at is to compare something with something else. And here its meaning is really to focus on the dissimilarity or the differences between things or people. Here is a look at that. COVID-19 spread in New Jersey this week was tiny when you compare it with the spread in Texas. So here we're noticing a difference in the way the coronavirus spread into U.S. states. I will note that sometimes people use compare to and compare with sort of interchangeably. And it might mean they're looking at similarities or differences. The definitions I have here and that focus on using compare to note things that are so similar is really more of an academic usage. So you might think about that if you're writing papers or giving a presentation in a course. Let's continue to use our verb of the day, compare, in some different verb tenses. Today, we'll focus on the imperative, simple past, and the present progressive. Let's start with the imperative. Some people might know this as commands, which is a great way to think of it. It is unique in that there is no stated subject in an imperative sentence. The subject is implied. It's you, either singular or plural. So with all of these affirmative imperative sentences, we can just start the sentence with the base verb. Here's an example. Compare the two poems. This might be an imperative sentence that a teacher or a professor uses in a class, telling their students what they are supposed to do, maybe with a partner or maybe on their own. If I want to make a negative imperative, so a negative command telling someone not to do something, I'm going to start with don't, and then I'll use the base verb. Here's an example. Don't compare your progress to others' progress. So this is good advice, probably for all learners, right? Not to always worry about maybe the grades or how fast someone else is moving through a particular subject of study in comparison to yourself. Next, let's take a look at the simple past tense. In the affirmative, we're going to use the form of the verb that ends in D. And this will be the same no matter what the subject is. Here's an example. She compared the camera, battery life, and price of several smartphones before buying a new one. So again, noticing what's similar or what's different as she made a choice on buying a new phone. If I want to make a negative past tense sentence, I'm going to use did, not, and then the base verb, no ed. And again, this will be true no matter what the subject is. Here's an example. He said his virtual party didn't compare to a real one. So here we've got that first phrasal verb meaning. It didn't measure. It wasn't the same as having a live party where people could attend. If I want to make a yes or no question in the simple past, I'm going to start with did, then I'll have my subject, and then the base verb. Here's an example. Did you compare the two recipes? Next, let's take a look at present progressive. We use this verb tense to talk about something that is happening now or something that is in progress. And we make the affirmative form of this verb tense by using a present form of be. That's going to be am, is, or are. And then the ing form of the verb. Here's an example. They're comparing apples to oranges. And this sentence includes an idiom, something that you might have heard. Perhaps as you have tried to compare other things, someone says, oh, you're comparing apples to oranges. And really what that means is you're comparing two things that are very different and really can't be found to have many similarities. Next, let's take a look at negative present progressive. To make this verb tense, I'm going to insert not after my be verb. Here's an example. We aren't comparing their stories. Finally, if I want to make a yes or no question, I'll start with a form of be, then I'll have my subject, and then the ing form of the verb. Are you comparing 2020's pandemic to the 1919 pandemic? Next, let's take a look at some words that are related to our verb compare. The first is a noun. It's comparison. And its meaning is the act or instance of comparing. Here's an example sentence. Many people use comparison shopping when making a large purchase. So you might think of buying a car. Right? You just don't pick out one and go, that's it. You might look at several different types before you buy. Another related word is the adjective comparable, and it means to be similar. Here it is in a sentence. Is the new COVID-19 self-testing comparable to clinic based testing. So this is a question I heard while watching the news, and someone sharing that there were going to be sort of at-home tests that people can administer or give to themselves versus going to a hospital, a doctor's office, or something else similar. The next adjective we'll look at is comparative, and it can have two different meanings. If you have been studying the English language and taking grammar classes, this first definition should sound very familiar to you. And that definition is expressing a higher degree of equality for adverbs or adjectives. So it's possible, as you've studied English, you've talked about comparative adjectives. Here is an example of that. Better and worse are comparative adjectives. So the adjective is good, and we have our comparative better. And you also might be thinking of our superlative best. And then with bad, that's our adjective, comparative worse, and the superlative the worst. A second way that we use this adjective when we're not teaching English or talking about English grammar is to mean of or involving comparison between two or more fields of study. Here's an example. The professor teaches a comparative religion course. So likely in this course that students will read and study more than a single religion. The last word I'll leave you with today is an adverb. It's comparatively, and it means to a small degree as compared to something else. Another similar word that's sometimes used is relatively. So, to a small degree. Here it is in a sentence. Even as India has had comparatively low death rates, COVID-19 has spread widely across the country. So this sentence comes from a news story that I was reading, and I believe they were comparing the death rates in India to several other countries and saying comparatively the number of people who die is lower, not as high, but there is still massive spread throughout the country. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.